Good morning, class. Here I welcome you again with your online classes, or you can say your video classes. Today we are going to start our chapter number 2, that is the biological classification. In the previous chapter we have discussed the living world. In that we have discussed how the classification is done, how the naming is done, how the different codes are present for their naming, what were the criteria that are used for the naming. Moreover, we have studied about various taxonomical aids, such as the herbarium, botanical garden, zoological garden, to preserve our animals and the plants from the poaching, from the hunting, or to preserve our endangered or the endangered species. Okay. Now, in this chapter, we are mainly going to study how the classification is done. As we can see, there are millions of animals that are present on our earth. So we cannot classify them as in a single category. In this chapter we are mainly going to discuss how the classification is done, what is the modern classification that we are using it, and before the modern classification, what were the different types of classification that were introduced by the scientists to study the various organisms. And the diversity is vast, so there was quite a very necessary need to classify them into various groups. Now look at the clip over here. You can see mainly there are 5 kingdoms, or you can say 6 kingdoms, that is kingdom Monera, kingdom Protista, kingdom Fungi, kingdom Plantae, kingdom Animalia. These all the points, and the virus, viroids, and the lichens, these all are we are going to study in this. The Monera mainly consists of your bacteria, kingdom Protista mainly consists of your Euglena, Paramecium, amoeba, kingdom Fungi mainly include your fungus, and Plantae your various type of plants, and kingdom Animalia your various type of animals. Kingdom Plantae and Animalia will be going to study further detail in the following chapter number 3 and the 4. Virus and viroid lichens we are going to study in this chapter only. Now before starting the chapter, we should know what is classification. Classification means anything which is grouped into convenient category based on easy observable characters is known as classification. Or you can say arrangement of organized information on the basis of similarities is known as classification. Classification is quite necessary as it allows us to study the organism easily and in detail. Okay, our next term that we are going to study is the biological classification. Biological classification means the classification of the living things. It is a systematic grouping of organism. It's also known as biosystematics. Biosystematics mainly deals with the identification, nomenclature, and the classification of organism based on their similarities and the differences. And because of this biological classification, we are able to formulate a 5 kingdom classification, and we have studied that. We are going to study that in detail in the following chapter. Now look at the following clip. There are different system of classification. First is your artificial system of classification. Second is your natural system of classification. Third is your phylogenetic system of classification. We are going to study these system of classification in short, or you can say in brief. There is not so much detail about it. First is your artificial system. It is a system of classification based on 1 or 2 easily recognizable characteristics. Okay, this was done by Theoparatus, and it classified plants into trees, shrubs, undershrubs, and the herbs. It was very simple classification of the plants that was done by Theoparatus, but it was not used further. Further, the second example of artificial classification was done by Aristotle. He classified the animals that having red blood, animals that don't have a red blood. He also classified organisms on the basis of egg laying and giving birth to the young ones. Next is your natural system of classification. Natural system of classification is a system of classification based on the natural similarities of vegetative and floral characters. Okay, example was done by George Bentham and Joseph Dalton and Hooker. He classified plants into 2 categories, that is cryptogams and phanerogams. I hope you remember your class 9th. Cryptogams are mainly the non-flowering plants, and the phanerogams are the seed-bearing plants. Okay, and on the basis of this, further classification is also done. Now you can easily remember there are 5 5 phylums of plant kingdom, that is Tridophyte, Bryophytes, your gymnosperms, and the angiosperms. Further, you can see the phylogenetic system of classification. Phylogenetic system of classification, it is a classification based on the evolutionary and the genetic relationship of organism. For example, two scientists, Adloff and Carl, classify the bacteria and all plants under 14 division. The 14 division is Embryophyta and the Spinogamma. Okay, it includes mainly gymnosperms and the angiosperms. And the phylogenetic means mainly taking the evolutionary, how an organism evolved. Taking that characteristics, we classify the organisms. Now, before studying our 5-kinder classification, we should know that before 5-kinder classification, few more systems of classification were also there. First was the 2-system classification. It was mainly done by Carlos Linnaeus. He mainly classified the plants and animals. He mainly gave 2 kingdoms, that is kingdom Plantae and the kingdom Animalia. In Plantae, he included all bacteria, mycoplasma, fungi and all the photosynthetic plants. And in animals, he mainly include all the unicellular and the multicellular organisms. Next was the 3-system classification. It is a 3-kingdom system. 3-kingdom system was given by Ernest Haeckel. He mainly developed kingdom Protista, kingdom Plantae, kingdom Animalia. In Protista, he kept all the unicellular and the colonial eukaryotes, mainly bacteria, algae, fungi and protozoans. In kingdom Plantae, he included mainly multicellular photosynthetic plant, and kingdom Animalia, he included mainly multicellular organisms. Okay, now there was also one more system, that is a 4-system classification. In the 4-system classification, one more kingdom was also added, that was kingdom Monera, kingdom Protista, kingdom Plantae and the kingdom Animalia. In Monera, he kept all the bacteria, mainly all the prokaryotes were kept inside the kingdom Monera, and it was mainly done by Copeland. In kingdom Protista, mainly unicellular eukaryotes were kept. In kingdom Plantae, mainly multicellular autotrophic eukaryotes were kept, and in kingdom Animalia, mainly the multicellular heterotrophic eukaryotes. I hope you are able to distinguish between autotrophs and the heterotrophs. Autotrophs that can prepare their food themselves, and the heterotrophs that are dependent on others for their food, like us. We are the humans which are dependent on plants, and the animals for the food. And unicellular, single cell, multicellular means which contains millions of cells. Now, for the main system that we are going to study in detail was given by R.H. Whittaker. That's a 5-kingdom classification. Classification was based on 5 characters, 5 to 6 characters. First of all, complexity of cell structure, that is whether it is a prokaryote or a eukaryote. Complexity of organism body, that is unicellular or multicellular. Mode of nutrition, whether it was autotroph or a heterotroph. Ecological role, whether it's a producer, consumer or a decomposer. And lastly, your phylogenetic relationship, that is from simple to the complex. These 5 characters he mainly used to classify the organism, and based on this he gave a 5-kingdom classification, or you can say the 5-kingdom system. Look at the diagram. This is a 5-kingdom that was developed by him, that is eubacteria and archaebacteria included in the Monera, then your Protista, your fungi, your Animalia and the Plantae. Now you look at a table to study properly how he classified it. Now look at the table. If you have a book, this table is also given in your book. First is the archaebacteria and the eubacteria, or you can say kingdom Monera is given, then your Protista is given, then your Plantae, fungi and the Animalia. Okay, this is a table that is also mentioned in your NCERT book. Go through that NCERT books. In this table more things are also mentioned, but no need to study this in too much of detail. You just have to go through and learn out a few of the types of it. Okay, you can pause the video and you can study this kingdoms. Now you can see a small, you can say the division of the organism. First of all, on the basis of prokaryotes and the eukaryotes. In prokaryotes, a single thing is mentioned, that is your kingdom Monera, which mainly includes your bacteria. Today we are going to study kingdom Monera in detail. Then in eukaryote, you can see they are divided into 2, that is unicellular and the multicellular. And please observe, keep in mind that kingdom Monera mainly contain unicellular. Okay, now eukaryotes divided into unicellular and the multicellular. Inside unicellular we'll study mainly Protista. In multicellular, further divided into with cell wall and without cell wall. In with cell wall, we'll study mainly two types, that is the phototropic that prepare their own food, that is kingdom plantae, and heterotropic that are dependent on others for the food, that is of fungi. And we'll study next without cell wall, that is our kingdom